The mermaid mother, holding her baby in her arms, was being closely pursued by a fisherman. She gently placed the child into a small boat, kissed his forehead, and then turned around and leaped into the deep sea. In order to draw the fisherman away, she deliberately emerged from the water. The moonlight shone on her perfect face, and the fisherman was instantly spellbound. He forgot to steer the boat, and it crashed directly into the lighthouse. In the small boat, the baby's cries echoed. The couple, who couldn't have children of their own, were overjoyed to pick up the child and regarded him as a precious treasure. They named the child Cody. In the distance, when she looked back, the child had already been taken away by a couple. The mother's tears fell into the sea, and she secretly vowed in her heart that one day, she would find her child again. 13 years later, Cody had grown into a sunny teenager, but he didn't fit in with his peers. He had an inexplicable longing for water. Every time he jumped into the pool, it was as if he had returned to his true home. His swimming speed was astonishing, and his fingers would occasionally emit a faint electric current, but he thought it was just an illusion. On his birthday, his good friend Jesse was surprised to find scales appearing on the back of Cody's hand. As water droplets fell, the scales slowly emerged, and then disappeared without a trace when they dried. Jesse speculated that this was some kind of atavistic phenomenon, and took him home to study it. Jesse's house was filled with mermaid statues, and Cody was completely unaware that Jesse's father was the very fisherman who had chased after the mermaid all those years ago. The man stared at Cody, and a feeling of both familiarity and strangeness welled up in his heart. When Cody asked about the legend of the mermaids, the man's eyes darkened, and his tone was firm. He had seen a mermaid with his own eyes, and had been searching for it for 13 years. On Cody's 18th birthday, his body began to undergo strange changes. When the tips of his fingers touched water, scales would appear. When he touched the girl he liked, an electric current burst out from his body. The girl's hair floated up due to static electricity, but he was completely unaware of it. There was an inexplicable and powerful gripping force in his hands, and it was getting stronger and stronger. He thought he had watched too many Spider-Man movies, until one day, there came terrified cries for help from his room. His parents rushed into the room and saw Cody hanging upside down on the ceiling without any support. His mother was in a panic, and immediately took him to see a doctor. However, the doctor just regarded it as a normal phenomenon during adolescence. But the scales were becoming more and more numerous, and his friend Jesse sensed that something was wrong. He flipped through books and compared Cody's scales with fish scales. To his surprise, they were almost identical. He asked Cody to try to communicate with the fish, and when Cody said something casually, the fish in the fish tank actually jumped out of the water directly. Jesse then took a light bulb and put it in Cody's hand, and the light bulb lit up instantly. Even so, he still couldn't believe that Cody was actually a mermaid. Late at night, Jesse went home and rummaged through his father's materials, but was caught by his father. When the mermaid was mentioned, the man's eyes turned cold, and he gritted his teeth and said, many years ago, he had seen it with his own eyes, but no one believed him. In order to prove himself, he was determined to catch that mermaid. The next day, Jesse hurried to find Cody and observed the scales with a microscope. Finally, he was certain Cody was not human. Cody couldn't accept the reality and went home to question his parents about his true origin. Afraid of losing him, the two of them chose to conceal the truth. Cody walked towards the faucet and let the water flow over his arm. In an instant, the scales spread all the way up his entire arm. His parents fell silent and finally opened their mouths. They confessed that on a certain night, 18 years ago, Cody had appeared on their boat. Cody was stunned, his eyes fixed on the sea, and he walked towards the place where his memories began. Suddenly, a fin grew out of Cody's arm, and one of his feet quickly transformed into a fishtail. Before he could react, he was grabbed. When he opened his eyes, he found himself on a fishing boat. Intense pain hit him, and he curled up his body. Seeing this, the man quickly splashed water on him to relieve his pain. Just as he turned around, he suddenly froze. The mermaid mother had arrived. The corner of the man's mouth twitched into a slight smile. What he had always wanted was not just Cody, but to lure out the real prey. Jesse also rushed over. He lifted the canvas, and was horrified to find that Cody's legs had completely turned into a fishtail. If he didn't get into the water soon, he would die of dehydration. But the man ignored it, and directly activated the huge net, targeting the mermaid mother. Even though she knew it was a trap, the mermaid mother still rushed over to save her son. As soon as she emerged from the water, the fishing net suddenly came down. She struggled frantically, splashing water everywhere, but it was all in vain. So Jesse takes a knife from the yacht, jumped into the sea without hesitation, cutting open the fishing net. Taking the opportunity, the mermaid mother got free and quickly dived into the deep sea. The man suddenly pulled in the net, only to find that there was nothing in it. The next second, the fishing net fell into the sea and happened to entangle Jesse, who was rising to the surface. He struggled a few times and was then dragged into the deep sea. His figure got farther and farther away until he completely lost consciousness. "Jesse," the man exclaimed in horror and jumped into the sea. But he couldn't find his son, no matter how hard he searched. Just when he was in despair, a figure swam rapidly underwater. It was Cody. He hugged Jesse tightly, struggled to break through the water surface, and dragged Jesse onto the shore. At that moment, his parents, accompanied by Sam, arrived and anxiously stood guard on the shore. However, Jesse had no breath. Everyone was in a panic trying to save him, but his heart still didn't start beating again. Cody's eyes darkened, and he came up with an idea. He asked everyone to step back. Then he put his palms together, and lightning flashed suddenly. He directly electrocuted Jesse's heart. First attempt, failed. The second time, Jesse coughed out a mouthful of water and opened his eyes. The man was stunned. He hugged his son tremblingly, his eyes filled with regret. At that moment, he finally understood who he truly wanted to protect. Just then, the mermaid mother reappeared. Cody looked at her, and a deep emotion stirred in his heart. He knew it was time to return. Sharon gripped his hand tightly, her vision blurred by tears. Unwilling to let go, Cody looked at his body and said that only she could help him find the answers he was searching for. Sharon sobbed but could only nod. She realized that the ocean was where Cody truly belonged. Cody looked deeply at his adoptive parents, smiled gratefully, and then he turned around and stepped into the sea. At this moment, he finally became a real merman.